Hey guys, it's the Loud Little Ducky. Today we are going to dive into the evidence in the Karen Reed case. Is it evidence that Karen Reed did something? Or does the evidence point to something else? That is for you to decide. But let's jump right in because there's so much to go over. Here is a picture of John O'Keefe's arm. Now, some say it looks like a dog bite or a dog attack, while the Commonwealth and prosecution state that this is from a taillight when John O'Keefe was hit by Karen Reed's SUV. But, like the jury, you get to form your own opinions. Now, he had this injury, and then that was pretty much it as far as the body, except for the head. The medical examiner did put, could not be determined how the person died. He did have blunt force trauma to the back of his head, and of course hypothermia from being out in the snow and the freezing weather. But how he got the blunt force trauma to the back of the head, was it from falling on the ground, from tripping? Was it from a dog pummeling him over? Was it from a vehicle? Was it from an altercation, being in a fight, or did someone hit him on the back of the head and then put him in that spot? Those are things we have to consider. And so, there were fractures to the back of the skull. Something with a lot of force is what is said. And let's see, what else? Blunt force trauma, injuries to the face and the head. The medical examiner also said blood can seep into the eyes from a fracture to the back of the head. She says she doesn't know, she doesn't think there was what she would call an altercation. I'm not going to put his face and head autopsy pictures up. They're out there if you want to look. But his head is the main thing. So I don't know if he got punched or if somebody hit him in the back of the head with something. I don't know if the car hit him in the head, or if the ground caused that and then the fracture from that caused the bruising and everything around his eyes and his face due to the blow in the back of the head. But they are out there if you want to look for them. I'm just not going to put them up. But you get to decide. Car, dog bite. Can it also be a dog bite and being hit by a car? Because somebody can get a dog bite because a dog saw them laying there and decided to go after them and do that. But how he got there, maybe before the dog came up, could be a possibility too. Or the dog could have done that. He hit his head, it's cold, and it was just a lot. He couldn't get back up. He had been drinking. Could this be an accident caused by someone other than the Alberts and the McCabe's and Karen Reed? Like, these are things we have to look at. And to prove Karen Reed did this, you have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this happened. And if it can happen multiple ways, and we don't have a clear understanding of this, all the evidence points to this and only this, there is no other possibilities, that would be guilty. But if there are multiple things that could have happened, don't have evidence to say it did or didn't happen that way, then the answer is not guilty because it's not proven beyond a reasonable doubt. There cannot be multiple theories and reasons why this happened if you put somebody guilty. Does it mean Karen Read is innocent? No. It just means we can't narrow down one way that this happened based on the evidence and the investigation. Now, I did find this picture interesting. It's just a bruise on John O'Keefe's hand. To me, it almost looks like a dog paw print. You have the base, the big part of the paw, maybe right there, and then the imprints of the paw. It looks like a paw print to me. It could be from something else. It could be from a paw print. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting because I hadn't seen this until I looked at the autopsy photos. So, what do you think it looks like? Is it another sign pointing to whatever happened on his arm happened from a dog? These are the pictures, supposedly, of where John O'Keefe's body was. We do not have a picture of John O'Keefe's body in the snow. If it exists, I do not have it. But the first picture is them standing where his body was and looking towards the house. And the next one is just a picture of where he supposedly laid. What we do not have are measurements of where he laid. We do not have a measurement from the fire hydrant or the flagpole or something to the body of, from the fire hydrant to John O'Keefe's head, this is where it was. From the curb to his foot, this is where he is. I get that medical intervention is more important than getting a picture of where the body was, but I don't know. But this is what we have. We don't have it from another view, like to the curb or anything else, but this is what we have of where John O'Keefe laid, apparently. Maybe it's real close to the street because you can see the car up the road a little bit, and maybe they're standing close to the curb, so he is really close to the curb, but with the snow and the curb, you really can't tell a difference much because of the amount of snow. But this is what we have. These are just pictures of blood in the snow from what they have. So we can clearly see that there was blood. Not like a whole lot of gushing of blood, which is interesting. Maybe because it was frozen? I don't know. But if somebody bleeds out, from a head injury, you would think maybe there would be a pool of blood somewhere. I have not found that in any of the evidence pictures. If somebody does have that, send it to me. I'd love to look at it. This is a picture they took just to show footprints of witnesses and police officers and everybody have traipsed through the snow. They said that they tried to put up crime scene tape, but it was very windy and it kept going, and they attempted to secure the scene as best as they could. But, this can mess a lot of stuff up when you have people traipsing through things. But at least they admitted that, here's a picture where everybody has traipsed through the scene. Here is an interesting video that we're going to watch. This is of a leaf blower used at the crime scene. Yes, I said a leaf blower. Now, I don't know about any of you, whether you're a civilian or in law enforcement, a detective, somebody who processes a crime scene. I would think that a leaf blower or a snow blower is not something you would want to use, because it is going to blow, is in the name, blower, blow evidence, whether it is away or to a place where it wasn't originally. And you want things where they originally are in a crime scene. You don't want something to end up somewhere else, because then that can mess up the investigation. You're moving evidence. You're putting things in a place that they weren't originally at. But it happens here. And something to note is that Lieutenant Gallagher, who is, I believe, the one using the leaf blower, says he has never processed a crime scene in the snow. They don't usually process their own crime scenes, which, okay, but when you went to the police academy and stuff like that and you've done training, they have taught you how to preserve and collect evidence. It's not a just wing it and do things. And if so, do not do this. Like, this should be taught. Do not do this in police academies all over. So, okay, you don't usually process. That doesn't mean that you have not received education in processing crime scenes. And, you know, it's not their practice also. When we're talking about the measuring of John's body from the fire hydrant, the flagpole, the curve to his body parts, it's not a typical practice for them. Not typical practice because they just don't
Lieutenant, with reference to that
or
process,
even if they do,
how far
that is
deep
not
into the snow were you able to
you
go with using that leaf blower?
need measurements to know
we
what
get almost to the ground.
I think you do.
Bare ground.
And they use rulers and
As
some
far
of
as
these
sort of
other
a
things. They obviously
surface
use
area,
measurements.
like how much
and
of
things.
that area where Mr. O'Keefe was found were you able to use the
If you
leaf
haven't
blower?
done it before,
It was approximately a 6x6, 7x7 type area.
And from that area,
The
what, if
lieutenant
anything,
also
in
states
addition
that
to the
the
cocktail
Alberts,
blast
even
pieces
with
that
this
you already testified to,
blower
and
thing,
red spots on the ground, what, if anything, else did you observe?
the Alberts never come
we
out of
didn't
their house.
observe
They're
anything at
still
that
not
point.
coming out of
Anything
their
else,
house
just the blood in the glass.
when all this is happening. Like, why is somebody leaf blowing my property? Like, this is weird. It just, a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense, and that's the problem here in trying to convict somebody, is you need things to make sense. But we're going to watch the video and look at the power on this thing and the way things are moving. And they're trying to uncover, like, blood and stuff like that. Something to note, they do not find taillight pieces during this search. The entire search this morning, there are no taillight pieces uncovered. There is, like, some cocktail glass piece uncovered, but nothing. And then, like, some clothing or shoe and a hat and stuff like that, but no taillight pieces at this point. But let's watch this video. So you can see it's moving that snow pretty good. But we also do not see flying taillight pieces, or red taillight pieces at that. We probably wouldn't be able to see the clear and all that. But what in the world? So this is the leaf blower. And this is how they got evidence. But it's not the most absurd thing in this case. Now, from when they processed the crime scene, like in the video before, during that leaf blowing incident and the other processing, they did not have any evidence cups. They did not have evidence bags. So they go to a neighbor diagonally from 34 Fairview, and they get some red Solo drinking cups. Yes, red Solo cups. And they fill them up with the snow where the blood is. So they put the blood snow into these red Solo cups. Now, the police department is about a mile or mile and a half away. And they could have gone to the police department and probably gotten the proper stuff to collect the evidence. Somebody left to go get a leaf blower. That was not with them. Somebody left to go get that. So you can leave to go get a leaf blower, but you cannot leave to go get the proper stuff to collect the evidence. And, they say they want to preserve the evidence. Well, the thing is, it's not preserved. And when you go get some red Solo cups, also the Stop and Shop and Save grocery sack, there is cross-contamination. Because, for one, you have the Stop and Shop grocery sack and the red Solo cups. You have people that handled them before they got to the store where these people bought the red Solo cups and got the grocery sack. Then you have the people that have handled it and stocked it. Then you have the person buying it, maybe people who have touched it in the process. Then you have the people that buy it. They take it home. Also the cashier, scanning it unless they did self-checkout. You put it into your car to take it home, and then it's in your home for however long, and people in your home touch it, and then the police get it. That is not preserving evidence. That is cross-contamination so much. Nothing is sterile. Nothing is new. Nothing is packaged. Nothing. This is not how we do it. And the lab, when they processed these Solo cups, they took 2 swabs. They took a swab out of 2 of the 6 cups. No, we do not know which 2 cups out of the 6 it was taken from. But they took 2 swabs. It was not documented well. You have gloves on. Great. But everything in that bag is cross-contaminated from multiple people touching and handling this stuff before the police went and got this stuff. This is not how we do things, guys. Now, after they collect these snow blood samples and put them into the red Solo cups, the Stop and Shop bag ends up in the Sallyport next to the Lexus. Unsealed. There is no evidence tape. It's just sitting in the bay, open, to more contamination. And anybody that wants to mess with this stuff. Also, the cups are now not in the frozen state that they were collected in. So now we have blood in snow. Well, now all the snow has melted, as you saw in the previous picture, where it's just blood and water. And water can do a lot of damage to blood samples. Like, it can wash away evidence. But it's just it's sitting open. It's not in an evidence locker. It's not properly sealed. It's not labeled. It's just open, sitting in a bay for dust and whatever else to get put in there. But you want to wear gloves to help handle this evidence that's already contaminated beyond belief. Like, give me a break. Do better. Like, just the investigation itself is so bad that it's really hard to figure out what happened here. And it's sad because John O'Keefe deserves to have the justice and figure out what happened and who did what. But with this investigation, like, you have to question everything because it's just crazy. But we're not done. Now, we watched a video in the last video I did about Karen Reed when she was leaving John's house at 1 Meadows Avenue and backed into John's Chevy Traverse around like 5-something in the morning. And then she left. And so this is a picture zoomed and taken from that video that was submitted into evidence at the trial. And so when she's leaving, you can clearly see that, this part was not, both sides of this part were not cracked. It was only this part right here that the taillight was busted in what we see of Karen Reed's vehicle today that the state has put up. But you can notice that right here in between this red spot and this red spot, there is, red that should be illuminating that's not. So we can see that there is, something missing there. Is it from backing into John's Traverse? Or what? Because this doesn't look like everything is cracked like we see later. So keep this picture in mind. This is from 5-something in the morning. After supposedly John's been hit and after she has ran into the Chevy Traverse. Now, is it possible that Karen purposely hit that? That way there could be damage and explanation? Yeah, we can question that. But when we group things together, we still don't have a clear picture. And so let's take a look at more images of Karen Reed's vehicle throughout the timing of this entire case. So we saw the taillight just a second ago lit up. This is a picture later taken off of, it's a dash cam video that they took this and had this photo. And so you can see this taillight over here is fully intact, right? Then we have the one over here where this is intact, but all of this is missing. Like, there's no red that we see here. This all looks gone. So, that's interesting. So let's go to another picture. If you want to stop here and look at this more in depth, you can. Now here is an image of it in the Sally port. We have the intact taillight. And then over here we have the busted one where there's no red in here, right? No red. Pause the video if you want to see more. All right, so this is the side view of it. Notice all of this is busted out. Whereas when we looked at the video at 5 a.m. of her leaving John's house, some of this stuff was still intact. It wasn't, and this whole huge gap was not missing from the looks of it. Some say, well, yeah, it was, lighting and all that other stuff just made it look like it was illuminated. But this is what it looks like when it gets to the Sally port. Interesting. Like through those 3 pictures that we just saw, the taillight seems to have morphed into more missing pieces from my view. You may think that no, all 3 of those actually look the same because this just little bit of red that's here made it look like the rest of this stuff was red. I'm no taillight expert. I am not an expert in any of this stuff. These are just my things that I am seeing with my eyes. And if your eyes see something different, let me know. Because I want to look at things from all angles and different perspectives. I like to hear both sides. Now, if you're somebody that wants to come in here and just be all about, oh, she hit him, I want to know what evidence proves it. If you say, no, she's 100% evident or innocent, well, how do you know she's 100% innocent? Because I'm in the camp of I don't know 100% of anything in this case. Because just so much stuff doesn't line up. And that's what we have to look at. We're looking at not guilty. In other words, it wasn't proven beyond a reasonable doubt of the one theory that the Commonwealth prosecution has. And not guilty because the Commonwealth's one theory has not been proven. Not guilty does not mean innocent, but it means that you can't put the person in jail because everything doesn't point to one thing. And we need that. But let's keep moving on. Here is more pictures of the taillight up close with all this stuff missing. All of it is gone, except for this piece here and like this piece right here. All of it is gone. Where it is, how it ended up happening, don't know. We know where some pieces were found, which we'll get to, but like I said, and if you need to pause to look at these throughout the video even more carefully, you can. Now, this is a picture, and I have circled where the Commonwealth and prosecution state that the cocktail glass hit Karen Reed's vehicle. This is the damage from the cocktail glass is what they are presuming. And that's the only indention damage that kind of happened from it. That is the Commonwealth's theory. Here we have an image of the bumper. There is a piece of glass right here, and this is what they are saying is the cocktail glass or some type of glass. But there is an interesting point, is the glass on the bumper here does not match the cocktail glass that was found at the scene that they think John O'Keefe had. So why does this glass not match the cocktail glass? Where did this glass come from? Not only does the glass on this bumper not match the cocktail glass found at 34 Fairview, but this glass that is on this bumper survived driving in the snow and the winds, because they said it was pretty windy. You can hear the wind really loudly on a lot of the videos. But it's also survived driving from 30 Fairview, where the Commonwealth says that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe. So that would be when this glass should have shattered, right? According to the Commonwealth prosecution, whatever you want to call it. Then she drove back to One Meadows Avenue, which is John O'Keefe's house. Then you see her in the 5 o'clock hour or something also hit John O'Keefe's Chevy Traverse. So that was like a knock, a jolt. And then goes to Jen McCabe's house. Now, some people say that she possibly drove around before going to Jen McCabe's house, so not just straight to Jen McCabe's house. I don't know if she did. But she was looking around, went to Jen McCabe's house. So all that driving around before she got to Jen McCabe's house, whatever that driving was. Then from Jen McCabe's house back to John O'Keefe's house at One Meadows Avenue. Then from there drove to Dighton at Karen Reed's parents' home, because that is where they picked the vehicle up to be towed. Then the vehicle, still with the glass on it, gets put on the tow truck, and then it is towed to Canton PD Sallyport. And then after all that driving, hitting things, wind, snow, all that, well, when it's in the Sallyport, the snow and the ice melt. And so none of it gets washed off or whatever. And this glass on the bumper survived all of that, supposedly. Which some say it could have. I don't know. That's for you to decide for your own thoughts about the case. Defense thinks that maybe somebody smashed a glass and put it on this bumper after it was in the Sallyport. That because it's a different glass from the cocktail glass, this glass came from somewhere else and they put the glass on the bumper to make it look like it came from the crash. That's another theory. You get to decide which theory you believe more. Also surviving all of that driving and snow and wind and everything else, and the snow melting and the ice melting, is this hair that is apparently found on the car, Karen's Lexus. Now, supposedly it's the same hair. In the first picture, it just looks straight. I have the red circle around it. In the second picture, it's C-shaped. Why? If it hasn't been touched. Now, I do not recall whether this hair was tested and if it was John O'Keefe's hair. So, if this is John O'Keefe's hair, it survived everything that the glass on the bumper did. all the driving and everything. And it has just stayed there with ice and water and all that melting, like not pushing it off. It's just stuck on there. Or another theory is it was planted. Once again, you get to decide. I'm giving you both theories. We are going to start to go through the tail light pieces and things that were found in the snow. A lot of these will be fairly quick. If you want to pause, feel free to pause to look at these tail light pieces and everything, and then we will explain how the tail light pieces were collected and what became of these tail light pieces. So here we have a big chunk, a little chunk. These are red pieces. So you can see is the same one as the one in the second picture of what we just looked at. It's just shown from a different view. Another red taillight piece. This is another taillight piece or piece of glass. Can't really tell. I have it circled. I think it's just a piece of glass. And there's some leaves and stuff. Not really sure. More red pieces. See a picture of the cocktail glass. Right in here, it looks like right here. Or it may be clear taillight piece. I'm not really sure. Of the red taillight pieces that you can barely see it, but I have it circled. A lot of these I have circled so that we can kind of see where we're looking. Pieces of taillight or glass, or the same picture just at a different angle. It's a clear piece. A clear piece, whether it's looks too big to be part of a cocktail glass. I mean, it could be, but I think it's taillight pieces. And apologies if you hear my dog snoring. It's talking about like they didn't measure from like the fire hydrant to John's body or anything like that to get a measurement at approximately where he landed. No outline, which I don't know how often they actually do a body outline. That may just be in like crime shows from back in the day. And you can't chalk in the snow necessarily, but they found something and they're using a ruler. So they are trying some form of measurement of taillight or glass here. Sharp piece, fairly big. It's a piece of, but it's something. Red piece. Red pieces, and they're using the ruler. Clear or glass. Or what looks to be glass. And I don't know how far apart any of these things were either. Just in and around the body, from my understanding. In and around the body, near the fire hydrant, near the curb. I can't say exactly where they were all located. Nobody plotted them. And there was a snow blower, or a leaf blower, so who knows? No clue what is in this picture, but they're measuring something. I'm not seeing it, so do not ask me about this one. Oh, now the ones with the heavy snow and they're finding those pieces, those are from the CERT team when they came out. So not the leaf blower people, because they didn't get any taillight pieces in the initial processing of the scene. These were CERT people that came out later that found these taillight pieces. The same taillight piece as we just saw, just with a ruler. So this one's about 12 inches long. And we have the straw here that they say is possibly from the cocktail glass. I don't think there was any DNA test done on this to find out whose straw this is and where it came from. They just made the conclusion that it came from John's cocktail glass. Most of the stuff they did not plot. There is some stuff that was plotted. Pedestrian's final resting place, or where they think it is. So where they think John is going to be right here. The glass cup is going to be right next to John's body, which if he threw the cup, the bumper, I don't know why it's right next to his body. Because if he threw it, it wouldn't be near him because it's not going to bounce back. So that's interesting. Some say maybe he threw it. Some say maybe he didn't. That it got knocked out of his hand when he hit the vehicle, which we already looked at, where they think that the cocktail glass hit the car. We've got the flagpole here. This is stationary. See, they could have measured from here to here to see, okay, here's the curb from here to here. This is where his foot or his head was. They could have measured those things. The fire hydrant is apparently way over here. And the pedestrian shoe was found right in here. Then they've got red plastic, clear plastic, red plastic, all in a line right near the shoe. So those are the things they plotted. That's about all that they plotted in this. So we have 3 pieces of taillight pieces and part of a glass cup that were plotted. Everything else that was found, and we just went through tons of pictures, not plotted. Now we're going to go over, this is when the vehicle was towed from Dighton at her parents' house. Now, Trooper Proctor, which we will have to make a whole video just going over his testimony. We will watch his direct and we will watch his cross-examination. And we just have to listen to everything that comes out of his mouth and all that he's about, because he is a huge part of this case and not for the best. Anyways, so Trooper Proctor says that in his report that he wrote that he sees the car at 5:30 p.m. when in fact he actually seized it at 4:16. Why the huge discrepancy? I do not know. And then actually collecting it at 4:16 and then arriving back to Canton Sallyport at 5:31 p.m. So maybe he was thinking 5:30 and then put at 5:30 when that was the arrival time to the Sallyport, not the arrival time to pick up the vehicle to be towed. Also, you can see how much snow is here. That is quite a bit of snow. So the hair and the glass on the bumper survived all this and all of this melting. Then you will see it. Notice this is at an incline. So, you know, things are inclined. Maybe it's not that much of an incline. The glass did not fall off the bumper, even at an incline like this, going up a ramp type thing. But I want you to notice and pay attention towards the end of it, and we'll go over it again and we'll kind of pause it. It's kind of right in here. It's very, very hard to see, but you will see red from the tail light that is supposedly completely cracked and broken, where it doesn't seem like there should be red. So this is another part in the timeline. We saw the videos of what it looked like after it got into the Sally Port. So those pictures of it
This video captures the vehicle
where we saw
being moved into position to be loaded up onto the flatbed
this was what
for
it
transport
looked
from
like
the scene.
right before it got to the Sally Port. And it shouldn't have been touched and messed with from this video to the picture of it completely being busted out. So let's pay attention.
Sergeant Mechanic, from this still image from this video, what, if anything, is significant to be observed in relation to the vehicle at this time that is being loaded onto the tow truck?
The rear tail light is illuminated. You could see a white light coming from that tail light.
If you could, using that laser pointer, you have always just direct your attention to the specific area you're talking about.
Right there.
Okay. Just tell me if you could play this through the...
So the person that I got this video from, you know, kind of zoomed in on it and put it into the video for us. And that is the trial channel. I will link their channel in the description box. They have all the stuff broken down and timestamps. They took a lot of time and effort to go through it. Now, we can see here, a lot of this, some of this is red. Some of this is a little bit different colored. I don't know if it's busted out the way that it is busted out in the Sallyport video. Also, this should be the same amount of busting here as when after she hit John's Chevy Traverse and drove out the driveway. Things are still red. It doesn't look completely busted. What would have been great for them to do is take a picture of it before it got on the tow truck. You know, make sure that there's no damage. There should be a documentation of, okay, this is what the vehicle looked like before it got on my tow truck, so that anything that happened after it and all that, you know, you document certain things. Maybe take pictures of things. The Dighton officer that was here for this, he says that it looked cracked, not completely broken. He is also, to me, one of the most unbiased out of all the police officers, because he works for a different department, has no connection to the McCabe's, the Alberts, with that police department, anything like that. So, you know, you get to draw your conclusions on what you can make of this. Does it look like it is busted out, or does it look like it's still partially intact? Is it just cracked, or is it busted? Okay, so we are going to look at another video. Now, this video is an inverted video. It wasn't turned over until after the trial had already started, which is past the discovery deadline, past Adam Lally's certificate of completion. Hey, I've turned everything over. I swear by it. Well, we now know, as of even February 28th, 2025, 3 years later, 3 to 4 years later, that's not true, because we're still getting video evidence when we've had a whole first trial. That all should have been handed over in the first trial, but now we're just getting it for the second trial? She had already been tried. And no matter if this is Karen Reed or Jeffrey Dahmer or the worst of the worst people out there, this is not how things do it. And they can say, oh, law enforcement had it, but the prosecution didn't. Well, if law enforcement has it, the prosecution has it. Whether they physically have it, it's different. But that is in place because they both work for the same side. And they do not want to be putting somebody's life and liberty on the line where the law enforcement who wants to play hide the ball and the prosecution can just play dumb. They're not doing, you can't do that. If law enforcement has it, you have it. And it is your responsibility to get it. So, and the thing is if she is so guilty in the eyes of the prosecution and in law enforcement, why won't you hand everything over? If all the evidence points to it, why do you need to hide evidence to convict somebody? Because the prosecution's job is not to convict. It is to find the truth. We don't just convict to get wins and put people away. That is not what the justice system is supposed to be about. So the video gets handed over. They play it in trial. It's inverted, which is, mirrored image. It's flipped. The prosecution does not point that out to the jury. The defense does. They try to be like, oh, well, nobody's near that tail light, right? Because, we can see that tail light. Well, it's flipped. So when you actually look at it from a reality standpoint, there are people over by that tail light. But why are these videos weird? Now, I have heard some things that say that maybe that camera or certain video cameras in the Sally Port do record all the videos inverted. But it should have been pointed out, and it needs to be known, not just, hey, let's act like this is showing what it's showing. Like, you can't do that. But all these videos that are coming out, they're snippets. They're just trickling out from 2022 to 2025. Some are inverted. Some are just flat, not turned over. Some are blurry. Some are missing time. Like a chunk of 42 minutes is gone for some reason. In the video, there's people showing up and disappearing. Like it's just some magic trick. They just somehow disappear and then they're popping back up on screen, but we don't know where they came from because that part's missing. And this isn't normal. This is not how things are supposed to go. And if it was just one video, maybe we could just push it aside. But there's something with every single video that comes out in this case. And the defense is not in charge of these videos. They have to get that stuff from the state, from law enforcement. So let's take a look at this.
Credibility.
It was misleading.
Northeastern law professor Daniel Medwed is talking about the video the prosecutor showed this week to jurors in the Karen Reed murder trial.
I testify that this is a accurate scene.
The video shows Reed's SUV being pulled into the Canton Police Department after it had been seized as evidence.
The jurors may have felt a little bit tricked or deceived.
That's because the prosecutor never mentioned that the video was inverted, showing the driver's side, not the passenger side. That's important because prosecutors say Reed's passenger side taillight was damaged by this point after she had allegedly backed into John O'Keefe and killed him.
Somebody wanted that video to be inverted?
My instinct is it was probably a mistake.
Medwed says prosecutors probably didn't notice the video was inverted, not until the defense attorney pointed out some writing in the video is reversed. Medwed says intentionally deceiving a jury would be risky for the prosecutor's career and for the case if it was exposed.
Why would the prosecution take this risk?
Here's the video after we have uninverted it. There does appear to be a person near the passenger side taillight, and the defense says that's Trooper Michael Proctor, whom they've accused of intentionally breaking the taillight to try to frame Karen Reed. Proctor has yet to testify.
Okay, so that is the video. They showed you the regular part, and then they showed you the inverted part. Let's take a look at the clothes of John O'Keefe here, which is exactly what we see him wearing in the waterfall bar and C.F. McCarthy's video. This is the long sleeve jacket type thing that he was wearing, two-toned. You, of course, can see all the blood on it. You can see where they cut up the middle to have access to his chest. And you can see little stickers and things put on it, whether it's a blood sample or a hole or whatever you may have. So this is the shirt that he had on that was the outermost shirt. He was not wearing a jacket. We have some, I didn't do the blood things, but I wanted to show the holes of the shirt because it could be important in questioning whether it looks like a taillight snagged it or maybe a dog's claws or teeth made these holes in the shirt. So obviously this right here is part of the cutting where they cut it. So they cut it up the middle. So these other things that we're looking at are not part of the EMT's cutting his shirt off of him. So 12 and 13 got a big little rip here, a tiny little rip there. Then we go to this top middle picture. This one's kind of huge. And it's pretty wide, unlike some of these other ones. I mean, 12 could probably become wide, but this one's torn apart pretty good in the middle. Then we just have these little holes. Like, could that be from a dog's tooth or from his, like, claws, puncturing in? Or did all of this stuff get caused from the tail light being cracked and busted and slicing the shirt? Still trying to figure out if this was caused from a car, because that is what the Commonwealth says, that all of this stuff points to a car accident and a tail light doing this damage. Apparently the shirt that he was wearing underneath that two-tone long sleeve that we just saw. We only know about this shirt from it being collected. Nobody ever saw this in a video or anything like that. You can see the blood stains and everything else on it. You can see where they cut straight up the middle to get it off of his body and things like that. Have his jeans and his belt. I know there was rumors at one point that the belt wasn't ever found or something, but they have the belt, and the defense never brought up any issues with the belt being with it during the trial. So the belt was with the pants. You can see blood stains and stuff on it. You can see where they cut up the leg to get these off of John O'Keefe and so forth. So, jeans, a regular t-shirt, and then just a thin two-tone shirt over that. Nothing heavy protecting him or keeping him warm for sure. Looked at the map of where they had logged, things. The only things that they actually mapped out, this is where the shoe was found. You can see kind of the curb and stuff right here, and this is the shoe. That he was seen wearing in the C.F. McCarthy's and the waterfall video, the black hat with the flag here, it was in the snow. And they said, only one shoe was on John O'Keefe when they found him. And that shoe that we just saw was a picture of the other one that they found in the snow that CERT team found. Shoes looked like that they were taken pictures of, and all of that. So they have both shoes collected. Okay, so some things to go over before we jump into the next part. 6 a.m., Canton PD processes the crime scene. And it takes them about two-ish hours or whatever. This is when the leaf blower is used. No taillight pieces were found at the scene at this time. And then no later than like 11:30 a.m., like people have all left 34 Fairview and the processing of the scene is, done with. Karen and John O'Keefe are, of course, at the hospitals, and he's been pronounced dead several hours earlier, all that. Then at 2:31, Proctor states Reed's vehicle was involved in a homicide to a Dighton officer. And he says he sees the taillight cracked / broken for the first time around that 4:16-ish, 4 o'clock time when they arrive at Karen's parents' house to tow the vehicle. That's when Trooper Proctor first sees her taillight for himself. So at 2:31, no taillight pieces have been found. But Proctor has it in his head that she hit him with the car. Some people think that maybe John O'Keefe was beat up. That was the thinking before taillight pieces were found. But to Proctor, automatically, he has figured out that Karen, is the one who hit John O'Keefe. That is his theory. So then, and Dighton police officer says it was cracked, not all the way broken, in his testimony in the first trial. Then, around 5:30 to 6 p.m., the CERT team goes to 34 Fairview and does searches. That is when the shoe and the hat are found, the 2 red pieces and the 1 clear piece that we saw mapped out. That is the CERT team's findings. So 3 pieces. Then, so that's all on the 29th of January. Then, on February 4th, a few days later, Chief Berkowitz spots taillight pieces from driving by. He just drove by and saw this taillight piece. Then, February 10th, Sergeant Buchanan finds taillight pieces. And then Trooper Proctor finds more taillight pieces on February 8th February 11th, and February 18th of 2022. So why are they finding more and more taillight pieces? Is it because the snow has melted and so everything is just more visible? There's not as much snow. Could you really see those from driving by? They just keep going back to the scene and searching and searching and searching and finding more pieces. And, you know, you can come up with your theories on that. Defense wants to say that they were planted. Prosecution says no, they were there from the incident when Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe. Now we've seen a lot of these pieces found in the snow and on the property. I don't know if we found 43 to 46 or 7 pieces of this taillight. They just found them all. There were no missing pieces when they put this thing back together, as far as like parts that were busted out, except for part, which we can possibly explain in a minute. But this was from 2/4/2022. These were the pieces that were found. They were in the evidence bags, and that's how the lab received them. Here's some more that were packaged up for 2/4/2022, or 2/2. No, that's when they were looked at. 2/4/2022. And notice these are evidence bags, and they have the evidence tape, unlike the red Solo cups in the Shop and Save bag. Just open for everybody. More pieces, and you can see some really, really, really tiny, tiny specks and pieces that were found. 2/4/2022. These are from February 10th, 2022, from Sergeant Buchanan. 14 pieces of glass and plastic fragments. These were all found several days later, at least a week and a half later. Trooper Proctor, on his February 8th visit, says tail light, 1 large piece of plastic, a small piece of rod plastic, and piece of black plastic found on the front lawn of 34 Fairview is what is stated. More from Trooper Proctor. 3 pieces of clear plastic, 5 pieces of red plastic. And some other from Trooper Proctor from the 18th. Several pieces of red and clear plastic. Found almost 20 days after the incident. Why were these pieces not all found in the first search? Or even when CERT team came out, CERT team only found 3 pieces. But later, Massachusetts State Police, lead investigator who has his issues, have found all these pieces. Where were they before, and why weren't they able to be seen? So this is the tail light housing that they removed off of Karen Reed's SUV. And so this is what the housing looks like. There's another one that has some pieces, maybe that were in the housing. I don't know. And you can see at the top and a little piece at the bottom that this is red, and you've got this piece and stuff down here. Now, when you look at her vehicle on the tow truck, if you look at it backing into John's Chevy Traverse and driving off, Is this bit enough to light up the areas that you see on the video camera? Or would it not light up that red with all of this missing? And some of this is supposed to be clear too, not all red. But does the amount of red lit up in the vehicle correlate to just this bit of piece red? Is it going to light up a lot of red? You get to make your own conclusions, and you can go back and look at those pieces and videos to see what you think. You get to draw your own conclusions. Some more tiny pieces. Don't really know where these came from. I don't remember. These, I don't know if they're plastic pieces or glass. They might be from the cocktail glass. I'm not really sure where they came from, but they are pieces to the puzzle. Maybe those pieces that we just saw were from the bumper. I don't know. They weren't labeled as bumper glass or anything, but maybe that's what they were, where they came from. I'm not really sure. Those could have been found in the snow as well. But as you can see in this picture, this is where the lab people have, they have all the pieces, marked and stuff, and they are putting them all together. They're doing a puzzle of a taillight housing, like a 3D puzzle. Don't know if any of you like to do this, but this might be a cool job for you, or a child that you may have that likes to do this stuff. So not any space. Like, they've got all the little crevices of everything that are fitting together perfectly. This is, I believe, the finished product. Now, this piece of evidence really made me question things, because while you have all the tail lighting housing put back together, could it be that they just happen to miss some of these pieces in here? Or could it be that these pieces missing here were when she hit John's Chevy Traverse and cracked it, and the rest of it is purposely busted? That was one of my questions. It also, when I think about wrecks and stuff, are they really, truly able to find all of the pieces, pretty much? Over 43 pieces of a taillight busted on a regular car wreck that happens out on the road. Like, collecting all those pieces. Or is there going to be some that are left in the roadway and not discovered? Like, is there going to be that much that is recovered? I know some of them were big, some of them were very, very, very tiny. And some of those pieces, I'm like, I don't think you saw that from the road driving by. So that's where I question things. I don't know if that makes y'all question things. What y'all know from wrecks, use your own common sense and your own experience and knowledge, because that's what you would be using as a jury. And does finding all those pieces, is that possible? Looking at all the different sizes and shapes and colors that we have discovered through what we've shown in this video, that this is the final puzzle taillight piece, all put together perfectly. Now, it is missing a piece right here, it seems like. That's not put together perfectly. This looks weird in here. And then, of course, this huge chunk here. So y'all be the judges. Let me know what y'all think in the comments section. I would like things to be civil and an open, respectful communication because we do not have to just attack each other. This is to look at things in a fair way. Now, this next thing we're going to go over is key cycles. And Trooper Paul is the one who gets up there and talks about accident reconstruction and physics and moving kinetics being forward. Things like that. Doesn't really seem to know the field very well. If we want to watch Trooper Paul and his testimony, let me know. We can watch that as well. But he states in this red arrow section, that is where his testing took place at 1164 for the key cycle. Then he states that 1162 is the key cycle where John O'Keefe was hit, is his claim. Now, key cycles are basically when you put your key into the vehicle, whether you turn it just on to trigger like the lights and maybe, oh, you forgot to roll up your windows, so you trigger it to roll your windows up, but you didn't turn the car fully on. Or you can turn the car on, which is an ignition cycle, but is also a key cycle as well. So basically any turning of the keys to on and then off, that is a key cycle. Okay, so if we go by this, some things that we need to look at are, if we look at the different key cycles that we know about, if Trooper Paul's testing happened at 1164, then that would make 1163, then when they were at Canton Sallyport after the vehicle was towed and it got off the tow truck, and then they turned it on and pulled it into the Sallyport, because the tow truck didn't put it in the Sallyport. They drove it into the Sallyport. So that would be a key cycle. And that should be the last key cycle prior to Trooper Paul's testing. I don't know why they would need to turn it on or off. But if they needed to turn it on to look at an odometer reading or something like that, there would be an extra key cycle in there. But let's say it's just pulling into the Sallyport after being towed. Then, right before that would have been the 1162 key cycle for it being driven on to the tow truck. Because we saw in the video, they drive it to position it so that it can be put on the tow truck, that incline and everything else. So that would be a key cycle. But that would be key cycle 1162, the towing, not the key cycle for hitting John O'Keefe. But they're saying 1162 is her hitting John O'Keefe, and it is proved. We'll look more into that. Then we have, before the towing, obviously Karen drove the vehicle to her parents' house. So that would be 1161, right? Those are ones that we've just kind of showed in this video. Now, there is a 36-mile difference in between 1162 and 1164, according to the odometer, which this is the odometer category. So we got 12,665 miles to 12,629 miles. So Trooper Paul's testing to this towing incident there's a 36-mile difference on the odometer. Why is there that big of a gap in between there? Something with the key cycles is weird to me. And it's saying, the accelerator pedal was opened, it was shifted into reverse during these time periods, and things like that. So it doesn't look like it was just the car was turned on and then it was turned off to like roll up windows or anything like that to check the odometer. There was shifting and stuff of the gears going on here. Now, and then we think it takes 32 miles from Canton, Massachusetts to Dighton, Massachusetts, where Karen's parents live. So 32 miles to 36 miles. So those are things we need to look at. I don't know that this key cycle and what they have said is Trooper Paul's testing and is then 1162 being when John O'Keefe was hit. If we think about when the car is the keys inserted into the car and the car is turned to on or driven and turned off. So I don't know that their data is done correctly. Maybe his testing, was 165 to 167. And then we go from there. So something doesn't sit right, but this is what they presented to the jury to say this is what told them that she hit him. This was the physical evidence. Now, this is where they are looking at the data from that 1162 thing. But if it's not the correct thing and the correct key cycle in the incident, then this data doesn't matter. But they're saying from that odometer reading to this that the vehicle's speed was about 24 miles an hour. And there was a shifting in reverse. So this is where they're saying this was done. The 24 miles an hour was reverse all the way through. And things like that. They've got it in the red circle that is the 24 miles an hour. And the 2s represent it being in reverse. And that's what they're saying when she backed into him. But if you don't think 1162 is the correct key cycle, then this being in reverse and it being 24 miles an hour doesn't matter so much. But if you believe it's the correct key cycle, then that's where they're saying he was hit going 24 miles an hour in reverse. Now, we've talked about Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator on this case, a bit. He is the one that said early on, before even seeing the taillight and before taillight pieces were even found, that he thought that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe. These are text messages that were discovered, and we will get more into all of this and things about Michael Proctor when we review his testimony. You'll be able to just see it for yourself. But some notable text messages that he has sent is no nudes so far. He was going through her phone and he hadn't found any nudes so far. Excuse me? Were you looking for nudes? Do you get off by when you go through people that have been arrested and cases? Do you, as women, when you go through their phones and look at everything? Are you excited when you find nudes of these people? The people you arrest when you go through their phone? Like, why would you say that? Oh, and he just says, it was disrespectful, it was in poor taste, and he's sorry. No. I'm not buying it. It shouldn't have been said. Then, when he was telling his friends about this incident, hey, this happened, a friend wrote, well, I'm sure the owner of the house will receive some shit. And Michael Proctor responded, nope, the homeowner is a Boston cop too. So not only is the victim on the lawn, John O'Keefe, a Boston cop, but the guy in the house, Brian Albert, he's not going to get shit for this because he's also a cop. Does that sound like because he's a cop, he's not going to get in any trouble? Are they going to make sure he doesn't get any trouble? Are they protecting their own in blue? It doesn't look good. Now, whether that's what he meant or didn't mean, that's what it appears to look like, which is not good. He said that Karen Reed waffled O'Keefe, whose body was banged up, when he saw it at the hospital. And the friend asked if O'Keefe was beaten up, and Michael Proctor said nope. So he wasn't beat up. Karen Reed waffled him. In other words, she ran him over. He also goes on to state later, there will be some serious charges brought on the girl being Karen Reed. They talk about her, is she hot, things like that. And then they talk about, well, if you like a leaky balloon knot, talking about her Crohn's disease, because Karen Reed suffers from MS and Crohn's. She has issues with her digestive tract. We covered that in part 1, that she has gone through some health stuff. And he's talking about her health issues in that fashion. He also states that hopefully she'll just off herself. Lead investigator wants Karen Reed to off herself. But he's unbiased and he's just following the evidence. He has no bias towards Karen Reed. He just said those in poor taste. I'm sure that, whether he's innocent or they're not, investigations need to be done correctly, without bias. They need to follow the evidence. We don't need to go on personal feelings, whether you like the person or not, because we can't just do that. Because we need to make sure that the ones that are actually guilty go to jail, get locked up, and everything is done good so that they can't get out on technicalities or police misconduct or people hiding the ball. We want them to stay locked up if they are a danger to society. But we also need to make sure it's done so that innocent people don't go to jail. So whether they are the worst of the worst, they need to stay locked up, so things need to be done correctly to ensure that these people do not get back out on the streets. And then if they're innocent, they shouldn't be there in the first place. This is why we have these laws. Now, Michael Proctor's text, which is 16 hours into the investigation. This is on January 29th, 2022. This is where the person says, she hot at least? Proctor says, from all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job. See you next Tuesday. Yeah, she's a babe with a weird Fall River accent, though no ass. Somebody says, not newsworthy then. So she doesn't have an ass, she's not worth talking about. And then another person says, oh, she's skating. Like, she's going to skate this. She's going to get rid. Michael Proctor says, 0 chance she skates. She's fucked. Lead investigator. Leading the charge on this case. Then, April 28th, 2022. Without a doubt, he's got diarrhea of the mouth too. I think he's talking about David Yannetti, which is one of Karen Reed's attorneys. Or maybe not David Yannetti. This is talking about the case, but they're talking about the medical examiner's report, which came back inconclusive. We cannot determine if this was a vehicle where he was hit by a car or whether he was beat up. We don't know the cause of how he got the blunt force trauma to his head and how he ended up in the snow to, have hyperthermia. Friend says, rookie move not meeting with the ME and getting that homicide determination. Yeah, because could it be ruled an accident, a homicide? The ME's not saying because we don't know enough to determine which one it is. Possibly from the investigation being so bad. And then Proctor says Yuri, which is Buchanan, and I had 2 conference calls with her, had numerous photos, etc. We laid out the entire case for her. The friend says, well, you should have had me or Jeff do it. Like, they would have gotten the ME to get her determination to be homicide. But they couldn't convince the medical examiner to change the diagnosis or change the determination to homicide. Because it would help the prosecution if it was homicide. But the ME couldn't rule it that, and she didn't waver on it. Which they shouldn't waver on their opinions. They shouldn't be able to be bought. They shouldn't be able to just be pressured into changing a determination of what happened in a case. But we know that there are cases out there where the ME has changed it or listed it as something that it shouldn't have been listed as. Michael Proctor after said, oh, you should have had us do it. Proctor says, if you 2 did it, she would have made it accidental or natural causes. He's calling them an idiot. Like, no, he wouldn't have gotten the homicide. They would have had the accidental. But the Michael Proctor then says, of course, it's undetermined. She was a whack job. So the ME is now a whack job, as well as Karen Reed. This is who is your law enforcement and protecting you guys out there in Canton and in Massachusetts, Norfolk. I wouldn't want these being the people who had my back. No, thank you. Dear God, WTF, what the hell is inconclusive about the whole thing? Well, the evidence is inconclusive. That's why there's such a huge divide on this. And the thing is if the investigation was done properly and things were logged properly and things were handed over properly, maybe this case would be more clear cut and dry, as Michael Proctor likes to say it. Black and white, cut and dry, whatever it is. They didn't have solo cups, if they would have taken measurements, more pictures of certain things, separated people when they were interviewed instead of interviewing them as groups, things might have been better. And that's the thing, is no matter what side you're on, whether you think Karen Reed is innocent, whether you are in the camp where you don't know if she's innocent or not, but the investigation was awful, or whether you think that Karen Reed is guilty, that she did it. Everybody should be mad at the fact that this investigation was bad. Even the people that think she is guilty should be mad about the investigation and that law enforcement didn't do their jobs to secure a guilty verdict in the first trial and possibly in the second trial. Those are the people you should be mad about, not people with a difference of opinion who don't see it your way, or people who are in the middle, or just like, I just don't have enough information to say 100% basically that she did this. The investigation was not done well, and I don't care what camp you're in, you've got to know that. But you're your own person, you get to make your own opinions and decisions, but I don't understand why more people are not mad at them in all camps. Maybe they are, but they don't talk about it. Now we have to mention ARCA, the accident reconstructionists who were hired by the federal government as a part of the federal investigation into the investigative process of the Karen Reed. Karen Reed not being investigated by the federal investigators. The people who investigated the case are being investigated for this and other reasons. Dr. Wolf got on the stand. He testified to making a cannon and shooting glass, like cocktail glasses, out of a cannon and throwing it to see if it hitting that taillight or something, it would shatter in the same way or it would leave the same indentations, things like that. But as a summary, Dr. Wolf, who was one of them, Rentschler was the biomechanical engineer. But Dr. Wolf was an expert that was hired by the federal investigators to conduct an accident reconstruction in the Reed case and found that John O'Keefe's injuries did not appear to be from a car strike. They're saying it was not from a car. So whether she did it intentionally or accidentally, it doesn't look like it happened that way, looking at the marks on his arms, the way his head was, and them doing things. Now, Dr. Wolf and two of his colleagues that reviewed the case, including police reports, crime scene, and autopsy photos and data related to Karen's SUV. Now, there was some stuff that they didn't get, but they were handed what they were allowed to have. They were just like, is this possible? Can you tell us if this is how this happened? And Dr. Wolf told the court in the first trial that he has a wealth of experience in examining cases involving pedestrians struck by vehicles, including a lot of nighttime visibility work, which means, this accident happened at like 12 something in the morning when it is dark, people have been drinking. And then you think about all the other accidents that happen at night because people can't see as clearly, things aren't lit up as you can see in the daylight. And so during his voir dire and during the trial, ARCA said that the damage on the car was inconsistent with having made contact with John O'Keefe's body. In other words, the car didn't hit him. He wasn't hit by the car. That is what ARCA says. Now, the defense used the federal accident reconstructionist people. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on out there where defense didn't hire them for the first trial, but they ended up having to pay them afterwards. And they are hired for the second trial, I believe now, but their report and everything that happened and their conclusions all happened way before the Defense of the Commonwealth knew of them. So the defense didn't hire them and then be like, hey, could this have happened this way? Or can you come up here and say that this was not caused by a car collision because of this? They had already made their report for the federal investigation. The federal investigators didn't even originally want them working with the Commonwealth or the defense. And then they said, okay, you can, but you cannot do extra testing and you cannot go out of the bounds of your report. So ARCA has to stick with what they wrote in their report for the federal investigation now within this trial as well, because if they're changing it or there's extra testimony, then federal investigators have to go back and do some extra stuff. And you just don't want to mess with the federal people. So their report is what they testified to and everything else. People can have their opinions on the paying and not paying, but just this is what they said. And I want to present this because it is considered, kind of evidence and facts known in this case that ARCA doesn't agree. Trooper Paul, we saw a video, or we're going to see a video next, basically explaining Trooper Paul's scenario so that you have both accident reconstructionists. We're looking at this from both sides, so you have all the information to make your own conclusions. Now, this is a video that I found on it was on TikTok under Critical Mind Theories, but I did find they have a YouTube channel as well called Azget Industries, which is AZGET Industries. I will have a link to their channel. They have other videos of some reconstructionist stuff. Apparently, they were also used in a Alec Murdaugh reconstruction in one of the documentaries used. And it's very interesting, but they lay out both. This video lays out the defense and the prosecution's theories. And so I want to look at this video, but definitely go look at other videos. They have covered other cases as well. And it's really nice to have a view. So let's take a look.
Authorities believe John O'Keefe was hit by Karen Reed's car. It caused him to be thrown through the air, tumbling in such a way that when he hit the ground, he hit his head, causing serious injury. They showed some evidence of a broken taillight and some personal items of John's. Authorities believe John O'Keefe was hit by Karen Reed's car. It caused him to be thrown through the air, tumbling in such a way that when he hit the ground, he hit his head, causing serious injury. They showed some evidence of a broken taillight and some personal items of John's found at the scene. Looking at a model to illustrate the injuries, we heard in testimony that John sustained injuries to his arm, the eyes, and the back of his head. Let's look at the injuries to the arm. As a vehicle backs into John, we can see how the taillight would strike the side of his arm, breaking into sharp pieces and cutting him. Moving to this dent indicated in red, it's believed that this is where the glass John was holding hit the vehicle and shattered. Here's a photo of the prosecution's belief that this dent represents where the glass had hit the vehicle. Continuing with the prosecution's theory, John is hit and thrown into the air. When he comes back down, he strikes the back of his head, causing serious injury. This type of head injury will cause black eyes, commonly referred to as raccoon eyes. All of this seems possible, but there's a lot of missing things that don't make sense. For instance, the lack of injuries being shown here in red. You would expect to see many injuries, some on the hips, the elbows, the shoulders, and the rib cage. Especially if your ribs and arm were hit with such force that you were knocked out of your shoes and thrown 20 feet to the ground. It's also the lack of evidence on the clothing. There's no abrasions, scrapes, tears, or stains that would indicate sliding on the ground. I personally question that a glass in one's hand could cause this pattern of dents and chipped paint. After all, the hand surrounds the glass like a layer of padding, and the speed is no more than tossing a softball 12 feet into the air and letting it hit the ground.
Okay, so that shows the prosecution's theory, but it also points out, would it have caused that little indentation on the vehicle of the cocktail glass? Also, his phone ended up underneath his body, which does get covered in another one of her videos on her channel on TikTok or YouTube. And the injuries and what we would think that we would see from a car hitting a pedestrian and in reverse at 24 miles an hour, and how the body landed. You know, we have went over Jen McCabe's text messages about her looking at Karen Reed's vehicle. But, you know, nobody saw John O'Keefe. Nobody leaving that house ever saw him or anything like that. Go check out their channel. They have great stuff. And it really kind of maps it out for you. But that is where we are going to end with the evidence. And next, we will be watching testimonies and going over documents in this case. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Turn those notification bells on so you can see as more and more about this case and others come out. Bye.